Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Lamb, sitting in for David Zhang. Here are some of today's top stories. Hunter Biden found guilty in his federal gun trial. More on the jury's decision. A virtual job with real-world wages? That's what Ikea has in store by combining gaming and employment. Since California's minimum wage increase, not only have food prices been on the rise, but also reports of job losses. First up, President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is convicted of all felony charges in his federal gun trial. Prosecutors argued the president's son lied on a mandatory gun purchase form by saying he was not illegally using or addicted to drugs.
After less than 4 hours of deliberations, a Delaware jury found the president's son, Hunter Biden, guilty of all 3 felony gun charges. The charges include 2 counts of making false statements. They relate to his answer of no on a mandatory gun registration form to the question of whether or not he was addicted or taking illegal drugs. The 3rd count is possessing a firearm while addicted to drugs. Hunter had pleaded not guilty to all charges, but the jury decided that he knew he was addicted to crack cocaine when he completed that form, and that he continued to use illegal drugs in the days after he purchased the gun. The first son could face up to 25 years in prison and up to a $750,000 fine, but he is unlikely to get the maximum sentence as a first-time offender. The judge will make the final decision on whether or not Hunter Biden gets prison time, fines, probation, or some combination. She did not schedule a sentencing hearing after the verdict was read. Here's what Special Counsel David Weiss said.
No one in this country is above the law. Everyone must be accountable for their actions, even this defendant. However, Hunter Biden should be no more accountable than any other citizen convicted of this same conduct. The prosecution has been and will continue to be committed to this principle.
President Biden said in a statement after the verdict, quote, "Jill and I love our son, and we are so proud of the man he is today." Former President Trump's campaign said in a statement, quote, "This trial has been nothing more than a distraction." The judge in former President Trump's classified documents case has denied a bid to drop 10 of the 41 charges. The judge did agree to remove 1 paragraph from the indictment, a small win for Trump and his co-defendants. The paragraph describes an episode where Trump allegedly showed someone from his political organization a classified map. Prosecutors say he told the person he should not be showing the document. The judge agreed with prosecutors that evidence related to uncharged conduct is admissible. She also noted such evidence should be subjected to pre-trial litigation before it can come into a case. Thousands of University of California academic workers on strike are forced back to work. Employees at 6 campuses were protesting administrators' response to anti-Israel protests. They returned to the job on Monday under court order, but their union vowed more protests to come. A judge has granted a temporary restraining order sought by the university. The university says the walkout stemmed from non-labor issues and violated the no-strike clause in the union's contract. The work stoppage was organized by the United Auto Workers Union Local 4811. In related news, at least 25 people were arrested after hundreds of students and activists gathered at the UCLA campus Monday night. They were taking part in a Gaza war protest. Police also dismantled an encampment where protesters had tents, wooden shields, and water-filled barriers. Authorities say about 150 protesters remained at the scene. Police accused them of vandalism and disrupting exams. Protesters also briefly took over a campus building. Police declared the event an unlawful assembly and the LAPD began making arrests.
Ikea is venturing into the video game world by hiring people to work as virtual employees to work in their new store in a game called Roblox. Here's NTD's BJ Kang with more on this story.
The game you see on my screen right now is called Roblox. a popular online multiplayer game which will soon be the host of Ikea's next location, a virtual outlet which might look very similar to this fan-made version. But in order to run this store, Ikea is hiring players to work as virtual employees for real-life pay. Ikea's virtual store, which takes place inside their game called the Coworker game, will allow users to explore, inspect furniture, and even be served virtual Swedish meatballs. Meanwhile, employees will manage furniture displays, interact with numerous Ikea items, and even help serve at the food court while being compensated with a real-world wage of about £13 per hour, equivalent to around $16 an hour. According to a recent press release by the furniture chain, the game was created as part of a new hiring initiative entitled Careers Done Differently in order to attract a new generation of coworkers. Ikea says that employees will also play a series of games while on shift in order to introduce them to the breadth of roles and career progression routes available at Ikea, inspired by real-life jobs at the Swedish retailer. Qualifications to apply as a virtual employee require applicants to be over the age of 18 and live in the UK or Ireland. Applications opened on June 3rd and will be closed on the 16th, with the game officially launching on the 24th. BJ Kang, NTD News, California.
Speaking of jobs, since California's $20 minimum wage increase for fast food workers, the effects have been felt in both prices and staffing. NTD's Christina Corona provides more details on the story.
According to new findings by the California Business and Industrial Alliance, California has nearly lost 10,000 fast food jobs since AB 1228's $20 minimum wage was signed into law last year. Ushering in the new $20 minimum wage, a massive increase from the previous $16, has led many companies to take drastic measures. John Kabatek from the National Federation of Independent Business tells California Insider's Siamak Karami,
Chipotle, McDonald's, Shake Shack, so many of these franchisees are now having to shut their doors. They're scaling people back and they're laying people off.
Over 1,200 Pizza Hut drivers have been laid off and replaced by services like DoorDash and Uber Eats. Before the law even took effect, economic impacts prompted lawmakers to act. AB 610 was soon introduced, granting exemptions to fast food venues in various locations to address the effects of AB 1228. Despite passing, closures persisted, including Red Lobster and Rubio's Coastal Grill shutting down several locations. The new law may also be tough for small businesses, which may struggle to adapt to the new wage increase.
So on the inside, it puts a small business owner in a very difficult position, now having to raise wages on everybody else, when in fact many may not deserve it at that moment, and there should be a process. Because many of them have been providing great benefits, providing wonderful wages for their workers, but they can't compete with a $20 minimum wage.
Due to the rising wages, many fast food restaurants in California increased their food prices. Hank Adler, a professor at Chapman University, tells California Insider's Siamak Karami,
the company has to make a profit to stay in business. Those costs are going to get passed along to the customer.
According to data from Kalinowski Equity Research, cited in the New York Post, since the $20 an hour minimum wage law took effect on April 1st, Wendy's has increased prices by approximately 8%. Chipotle has raised prices by 7.5%, Taco Bell by 3%, Burger King by 2%, and Starbucks by about 7% in California. An In-N-Out Double-Double with fries and a drink now costs more than $10 in California. The Orange County Register reported that a double-double meal is priced at $10.45, a cheeseburger at $8.65, and a hamburger at $8.15, all before taxes. With a 9.5 sales tax in Los Angeles County, the total cost of a double-double meal comes to $11.44. However, in April, In-N-Out Burger's president Lindsay Snyder fought to keep prices down in California. Snyder said she opposed significant price increases in VP meetings, stating, "We can't raise the prices that much. We can't." According to a new study by LendingTree, nearly 80% of Americans see fast food as a luxury and are eating it less often. Christina Corona, NTD News.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come right back. A new FBI report shows a big drop in violent crime. We'll break down the latest data. Retail crime remains a concern for Californians. Can voters repeal a controversial proposition blamed for the rise in shoplifting? A former DA weighs in. Dan Hurley turns down a lucrative offer from the Lakers, and the WNBA sees its highest opening month. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Lamb. Violent crime dropped by more than 15% in the United States during the first 3 months of 2024. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the latest FBI statistics.
The new numbers released Monday show violent crime from January to March dropped about 15% compared to the same period in 2023. Murders are down about 26%, rapes 25%, aggravated assaults and robberies are down about 12 and 18% respectively. The numbers were gathered from around 14,000 of the just over 19,000 law enforcement agencies from across the country. Other statistics tell a similar tale. Property crime down about 15%, burglaries and motor vehicle theft down about 17%. Attorney General Merrick Garland called the drop in crime historic. President Biden also reacted, saying the progress was no accident. Biden credited his administration for putting more cops on the beat, holding violent criminals accountable, and getting illegal guns off the street. The preliminary figures in the FBI report do come with important limitations. For one, the Bureau relies upon data voluntarily submitted by policing agencies. Crime analysts also say quarterly data are imprecise, as law enforcement agencies have the remainder of the year to audit and correct it. The U.S. murder rate has declined since 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic brought with it a surge in homicides across the country. Criminal justice experts generally blame the 2020 surge on the closure of schools, businesses, childcare, and community programs. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
In an effort to stop organized shoplifting, lawmakers contend over the best approach. In California, many blame the state's $950 retail theft law, saying it allows smash-and-grab robbers to avoid prison time. This week, lawmakers would vote on how it will turn out this November. I spoke with Anne Marie Schubert, former DA of Sacramento County, over her efforts to reform Prop 47.
And welcome and thank you for joining me. Now, Prop 47 initially increased the threshold for a theft to be considered a felony from $400 to $950 in California. Now, first tell me about your initiative to modify this law.
Thanks so much for having me, David. First of all, Prop 47 was passed 10 years ago, and at the time it was passed, it basically reduced virtually all theft and drug crimes to misdemeanors, and it's almost impossible at this point to hold anybody accountable. So what we're seeing in California is this rampant retail theft. We see drug addiction very bad. We see homelessness. Fentanyl is off the charts. So the ballot measure has been drafted in a very common sense fashion to try to address these repeat thieves, to deal with hard drug users in terms of getting them to mandatory treatment, and to go after fentanyl dealers. So this ballot measure is very wildly popular. We've got collected almost 1 million signatures. We know it will qualify, and we're going to hear that this week. But it's absolutely what Californians need at this point to get a handle on what's happening. And the way that Prop 47 was written is it's virtually impossible to change any of it without going back to the voters and letting them vote on it like they did on Prop 47.
And very briefly, what are some of the changes? I understand there's allowing the judge to penalize repeat offenders. Can you just briefly give us an overview of the changes?
Sure. So there's really three legs to the stool. The first one is that when somebody has 2 or more prior convictions for theft, the third one can be a felony, and there's no threshold. So right now it's $950, but if you're a third-time a thief, you're now a serial theft person. So we're going to hold you accountable. The second piece is dealing with fentanyl. So we're trying to get a handle. We're going after hard drug traffickers such as fentanyl. And the third is to compel people that have serious substance abuse problems into treatment. And so that's our goal, is to get folks into treatment. The theft piece, I should mention, has some enhancements for dealing with some of the smash and grabs that we're seeing across California, because we need to hold people accountable and to really stop this behavior.
Now, and there's supposed to be some big developments this week. What's at stake?
Well, there are some big developments. As you may know, our legislature has not done really anything in this space since Prop 47. And because of this ballot measure, there's been tremendous pressure. So the legislature has a packet of bills that maybe marginally help us. Some of them we have support, and some of them we may not support. But the main component of these bills is they're going to add provisions that would say that are really trying to divide the ballot measure and trying to really hamper our ballot measure. And they're adding language, and I know it gets complicated, but basically says they're going to pass these bills, but if the ballot measure passes, then our laws are invalid. And that's really an unfortunate political game, because it's really about fixing the problems. If it's good legislation, you shouldn't have to kill it, if that makes sense. So we're very much interested in having folks call their legislators, call their elected officials, and tell them how they feel about this, because really the voters of California want these changes, and they must be done at the voting booths, not in the legislature.
And what would you say would be a benevolent approach to prevent criminal groups from organizing mass shoplifting and drug dealing?
I think the most common sense approach is holding people accountable. So when people engage in, criminal behavior, they have to know there's going to be consequences. And right now, because of the way 47 was written, there's no deterrence. People know that they can go into AutoZone in Los Angeles and steal and steal and steal. They can go to 5 stores as long as they keep it under $950. So we are at a tipping point here in California where we need to hold those individuals accountable, and they need to face felony conduct if they don't stop their behavior.
And if consequences are increased, or would this would this impact the number of felonies and crimes? What's your assessment there?
Well, it makes some people that are repeat thieves eligible for felony convictions. It doesn't mean they're automatically going to prison, but it does mean that they can be, suffer some consequences, go to local county jails, and then ultimately if they continue to repeat their behavior, yes, they could. But we don't have any expectation this is going to blow up the prison population in any way. And anybody that tells you that is really not being forthright and not really looking at the initiative.
And lastly, so come November this year, which is a decade after this law was initially passed, as you mentioned, how do you think voters will vote on it, the reforms?
Well, what we know from our polling and just by the number of signatures collected is that there is overwhelming support, bipartisan support, small businesses, large businesses, social justice groups, everyday citizens, obviously law enforcement. So we're very, very confident that when we take this to the ballot in November, that the citizens of California are going to support it.
All right, and thank you so much for your insight into the criminal justice and your efforts. And we hope to speak to you again regarding this very soon.
Thank you so much for having me, David. I appreciate it.
Now to sports. UConn's Dan Hurley turns down a lucrative offer from the Lakers, and the WNBA sees its highest opening month attendance in 26 years. NTD's Carlos Reyes has more on the stories.
Dan Hurley has decided to stay at the University of Connecticut, turning down a lucrative offer from the Los Angeles Lakers to be their next head coach. According to CBS Sports, the deal Hurley declined was a 6-year deal worth $70 million. Hurley is best known for his time at UConn, where he helped the Huskies win back-to-back national championships. Now the Lakers are expected to refocus their coaching search on 2 prominent candidates, ESPN broadcaster J.J. Redick and New Orleans Pelicans assistant coach James Borrego. Redick, a former NBA player and current host of a podcast with the Lakers star LeBron James, was reportedly the frontrunner before Hurley entered the conversation. The Lakers see him as a potential Pat Riley-like figure for the team. Hurley, who has hinted at a future interest in the NBA, cited potential burnout as a reason for considering the professional ranks. In an April interview, he expressed that the NBA might appeal to him as he matures and grows emotionally. His continued success at UConn suggests that NBA opportunities will keep coming his way. The WNBA is enjoying a spectacular start to its season, marking the highest attended opening month in 26 years. This surge in popularity is largely driven by a phenomenal rookie class, featuring standout stars Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. The excitement around these rookies has translated into record-breaking viewership as well. The league announced that it has had its most-watched season start ever across all 6 of its broadcasting networks. The league has also seen a notable increase in diversity amongst its viewers. There has been a 60% year-over-year growth in viewership among people of color, particularly Hispanic and Black audiences. Additionally, there was an 139% increase in young girls tuning in during the league's tip-off week. Beyond Clark, other rookies like Angel Reese, Cameron Brink of the Los Angeles Sparks, and Kate Martin of the Las Vegas Aces are also drawing significant attention. The average viewership for WNBA games has soared to 1.32 million per game compared to 462,000 last year. Fan attendance is hitting new heights too. Approximately 400,000 fans have attended games so far, marking the best first-month attendance in over 2 decades. Online ticketing site TickPick reported a staggering 435% increase in tickets sold for WNBA games in May, with ticket prices up by 60%. The Indiana Fever, Clark's team, saw an eye-popping 4,439% increase in ticket sales for the month. Carlos Reyes, NTD News.
Stay tuned for China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer coming up next. 4 American teachers stabbed in China. What we learned about how it happened and their latest condition. More on China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And that's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Lamb. That's our program. Have a wonderful evening.